Welcome along to the Fusion5 webinar on ApprovalPlus, which is our Procure to Pay solution, and it's part of the Safe Pair of Hands series that we're promoting to our AX customer base, and so other people along as well. So thanks for making the time to have a look. So just to explain Fusion5, we're a business applications company. We're around about 380 employees spread across Australia and New Zealand, and we look after all sorts of business solutions, and that may range from Microsoft 365, for example, to JD Edwards, NetSuite. We do payroll, we do customer management solutions, and the things that work with those. So, for example, here, ApprovalPlus is owned by Fusion5. We create it, and it's designed to fit in with ERP systems. We look after around about 800 customers, and we spread across 9 offices in Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so the ApprovalPlus product, as I said, it's ours, and it slots into the ERP pillar within our organisation, and we look after Procure to Pay. So we're going to be taking you through the process of buying things and approving invoices and getting those ready to be paid. And in the case of the Microsoft AX customer base, obviously getting those invoices into your ERP at the end of that process too. So why people look at this space and have a need, I guess, does tend to vary by organisation, but many of them will be looking at reducing the amount of time and cost that they're spending on processing pieces of paper and punching them in. Others will have different drivers, so you may be looking for tighter financial controls or speeding up your month-end cut-off, giving your managers information to accounts payable and purchasing information that they currently have to do off reports or by querying things directly with finance. So some of those drivers have different weightings, obviously. You have people who have split organisations all over the countries, and they have, I guess, a larger requirement for being able to see things online and doing those things. So lots of different drivers, but all of those things get addressed as part of what we're going to do. There is a cost to what you're going to see, obviously. Now, the cost of these solutions has come down quite considerably, and you can buy them as a service rather than the purchase of them now. But to give you an idea of how it pays for itself, a typical invoice in New Zealand or in Australia is somewhere between $10 and $20 mark for most of our organisations, and we're really looking at how many of those invoices are you doing, and how can we pay for what you're going to be buying, if you like, within quite a short time frame. So we're often seeing around about a 6 to 9 month return on investment for our customers. Okay, and we're obviously pushing you further up that list and trying to get you to the best in class area and spending as little time and effort on that as possible. So what ApprovalPlus is, it's all around anything you're spending money on in your organisation other than payroll, and typically that starts with your accounts payable for your supplier invoices, but it may extend out to how you purchase things or maybe how you pay for them. So you might be, for example, using credit cards to do that payment, or you might be using staff expense claims, and the ways you're managing that spend is all tied together, and that's the space that ApprovalPlus plays in. It's looking after that area. What we do is we work with your existing ERP system, and so for many of you who are on Microsoft Dynamics AX at the moment, you may be looking to go into 365. ApprovalPlus will work with both of those. We also have customers in the JD Edwards and SAP and Microsoft Navision space, all those types of products as well. So we're currently connected to around about 26 different finance systems, and we work for all sorts of different organisations to cover their requirements. One of the things you'll see as we go with ApprovalPlus is there is a very strong flavour of a finance system, if you like, around how the product works. So it's got a lot of financial controls, audit trails, ability to do commitment tracking and do your accruals, for example, at month end. And there's all of those things that are part of the product, and I guess have been built in as standard. So it's not a workflow tool that you drag and drop and create your own thing. It's a product that's got these pieces specifically built for the customer base. Okay, now there's quite a variety of customers using ApprovalPlus. So they're spread across Australia and New Zealand, and really they're in government departments, councils, corporates, not-for-profits. They're across all different industries. As I said, they're using different ERP systems and things like that. But really we've got a good broad coverage of customers, and what that brings to the product is a lot of diversity to what they need, and that's been built into the standard product. So as a customer comes on board, and if they have some specific requirements for their ERP system or for their industry, we build those into ApprovalPlus as part of the configuration options, if you like, and people can use the system to suit how they want it to do things. And really, the product's had a life cycle of around about 18 years now, and in that time, a lot of new things have been built into the product, and lots of features become available for our customer base. Nowadays, we're typically selling it as a service, so we're obviously doing upgrades and things online as part of the cloud offering, and we also offer an on-premise solution for those who want to keep it on-premise as well. How it all works is that the ERP system becomes the master, if you like, and it's sending us master data. So it's things like suppliers and general ledger codes and work orders, asset numbers, those types of things. If you're doing stock purchasing on your ERP system, we can bring those purchase orders and receipts through into ApprovalPlus, or you can manage the whole purchase order process from within ApprovalPlus for your non-stock items. And so a lot of our customers are doing their service-related spend or their corporate type stuff and asset purchases and things within ApprovalPlus, and they may be doing their stock things within their ERP system. Now, the idea is that all invoices can come in to ApprovalPlus and will match to the purchase order regardless of where it started its life, and close off the purchase order where it needs to be closed. So we're also going to show you a little OCR solution that feeds into ApprovalPlus called Extractor, and really that's just an option to enable the data entry to be very automated and seamless for your users, and we'll take you through that as part of this little presentation today as well. There's a lot of options with ApprovalPlus. A couple of those are the corporate cards and expense claim modules, and what they really allow you to do is to let your users do things in a different way. So we have a mobile app, for example, that's available for those purposes, and for people who don't understand GL codes and those sorts of things very often, give them something nice and simple to use like an app, and they can take photos of their receipts and things and get that into the process as well. Inside of ApprovalPlus, we're doing the matching of invoices to purchase orders, or coding and approving of those documents, and handling all the exceptions and the reminders and workflows and things that go into that process. At the end of that, we're pushing those invoices off to your ERP system, and they go through their normal process for payment. They get all their general ledger coding and other requirements, if you like, pushed through at that stage as well. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of main processes today. So one of those is the creation of purchase orders, and it's nothing unusual. You create something, you get someone to approve it, you place an order with the supplier, you receipt it, and you pay for it. Now, what we try to do in the ApprovalPlus process is make that as automated as possible and as easy to do that process for the users as possible, and try and automate the bits which we can. So, for example, when you raise a purchase order, I'll show you that we can use a catalogue, and if you're using that catalogue, it can default in a lot of that information for you. But it also means that the invoice match process later on can also be a lot more automated, because we've got a lot more information fed into the system on the purchase order. It's accurate, that can match to the purchase order, to the invoice. So I'll show you that as we go too. The orange piece, if you like, is what happens with invoices. The blue bit's what happens with purchase orders. We look at how we can take what happens in the cases where they don't match. So, for example, in a traditional purchase order process, you would have to go back and change your purchase order, reapprove it, re-receipt it, those sorts of things. We don't do that. We allow you to match an invoice and a purchase order, and if there's an overspend, get that approved and then push that out for payment. Okay, there's a lot of our customers also using ApprovalPlus for standard invoices, if you like, so no purchase order related there, and that might be for your power bills and your phone bills and things like that. Or some customers use ApprovalPlus at the start before they're ready for purchase orders, and I guess it breaks your users into an electronic means of doing things, and then rolling out a purchase order on top of that can be quite easy as well. So in the case of just an invoice, we're sending it to someone, we ask them to code it, we call them a preparer, and then we ask someone to approve it. And ApprovalPlus will control who's allowed to do those tasks, who should be sent things, who can approve things, all those types of things as part of that process for both purchase orders and invoices. Okay, so we're going to pop out in a second to Extractor and show you capturing some invoices and how that works. Really the general way that invoices are fed into your accounts payable processes, they come via email from your suppliers. That email comes in, gets forwarded automatically to Extractor, and Extractor starts processing. And all going well, you don't even have to touch it. It'll go straight into ApprovalPlus. If it needs some help, it'll tell the accounts payable person, and they can teach it some things about an invoice if they need to. And you'll find a lot of invoices will go in automatically now. The OCR process has changed quite considerably from the old templates per supplier days and things like that, that it will read the piece of paper and try and do a lot of that work for you. Okay, now to carry on the automation, if you like, what happens after the invoice has been captured, then we feed it into ApprovalPlus and we look at what can be done next. So if, for example, there is a purchase order quoted on that invoice, can we do the match? So we'll try and automate the match either at a header or detail level. Maybe people have forgotten to receipt the purchase order, so we'll send them an email and ask them to do the receipt. Okay, if you have non-purchase order related invoices, it can go straight out to people. So for example, if the certain supplier always goes to a particular person in the organisation, then default those and get those to that person automatically. So you're trying to skip the accounts payable having to do any data entry, or even trying to have to review the invoice and get it to the person who needs to see it. Okay, and there's going to be exceptions to that in any case where invoices need to go to accounts payable, and they might need to handle some of the matching or decide who things are being sent to, or we may actually default some information in such as little error messages and say check the GST amount, or this invoice is older than a certain date that we've set into the system, so we want you to review it. Okay. There is a mobile app which is available for some of what you're going to see today. So we're going to see the credit cards and expense claims, and this app is getting added to all the time. So really the idea is that going forward, for people who are mobile in nature for their jobs, that they'll be able to do more things on the mobile device as well. And there's a lot of options in ApprovalPlus, and we won't show you all of those today, but just to give you an idea, things like approve by email. Here, for example, I've been sent an email to approve an expense claim. I can just look at the attachments and hit the approve link directly from the email, and it's straight away done. So you don't have to log into systems to do things if you want to set it that way. If you do want to log in, there's a link inside of emails to take people to the actual system. And we're going to pop in and show you ApprovalPlus. So to give you a quick overview of what the screen looks like, this is a landing page for a user, and if I've got things to code or prepare in my words, I've got 6 of them there. I can hit the play button. If I've got things to approve, I've got 4, hit the play button. So we're trying to keep the tasks in front of the people who are doing them. They'll get emails notifying them of tasks, and that might be bundled, or they might be getting reminders if they've forgotten to do it, those types of things. But really the action is happening from the screen. There's a very visual component to all ApprovalPlus screens, so you'll see as we go, there's always something on the left. So in this case, an ApprovalPlus purchase order is being created, or waiting to be approved in this case, sorry. And so here's my summary of the total amount. I can see what has been purchased and intended to be purchased, and where it's been coded to and things over here. So the idea really is it's nice and easy for someone looking at a document to have that visual representation. All of the actions are on the right hand side, so it's an easy to use system, very minimal training required for your users, and they can be up and running quite quickly. And we're going to go first to the OCR screen. So just to explain the layout of the screen, if you like, you'll see an invoice image on the left-hand side, and then the data that we're grabbing off that image on the right-hand side. And really what we're trying to do with that is look at the invoice format, try and grab the things off it that we need. So we need to know who the supplier is and the invoice date and invoice number and those types of things. And the way the OCR capture process works is it's looking for the keywords on the document for us. So it's gone looking for GST numbers and found GST numbers or ABNs in Australia. Customer order number is another term for purchase order number. So it's got a little library of those things in the background, and it helps it to grab things automatically for us. Okay, so let's get out of the slides and we'll go and have a look at the systems. Oops, sorry, I'll just log into the extractor. So these are both in the cloud, the systems I'm showing you today. You can have ApprovalPlus on-premise if you wish. So we're going to jump into an invoice. Now this is a queue that the accounts payable team would have for things that haven't been captured correctly and need some help. Okay, so for example, if there was an invoice number missing off the document, it would look like that. and the accounts payable person would come in here, look on the document for where they think the invoice number is, and just draw a box there. And they would only do that by exception. So most things, the green boxes, have found things on their own, and it's done that by looking up certain data and doing some validation on that information. So for example, it's found a GST number in New Zealand here and found the valid supplier based on the GST number in Australia. That'd be an ABN number, passed through and pushing out the correct supplier number from your ERP system. It's gone looking for things like invoice dates and invoice numbers and things like that, and sometimes it's going to be doing that based on it's got real words like invoice date and things like that, but sometimes that date may just be near the invoice number. So there's a collection of the way that the system does this, and it's finding enough on there to tell us that this is actually an invoice, for example. It's gone and found a purchase order number and dollars and cents and things like that as well. We'll also build into your process some validation on the dollars. So for example here, it's going to add up the subtotal and the tax and make sure that adds to the grand total. And that's doing two things. It's making sure that it's got the things we need, but it's also validating that these things make sense. So if we've captured the wrong number off the piece of paper, those things will fail validation and it won't go through that process. And we can do some other things around the invoice that aren't typically done, if you like, if you're entering it manually. So for example here we haven't got a currency displayed on this invoice, but we've looked up the default currency from the finance system and popped that in there for us as well. And we can also go hunting for bank account numbers, compare that bank account number to what you've got set up in your ERP, and if it's different, send an email to your finance team and say it appears that Power Otago have changed their bank account number, and get them to go on to their normal process of calling the supplier and asking for a deposit slip and going through that process on your AX system. Okay, and really that's your capture of the information. Really at that point all you need to do is output it. We've taught it where those new bits of data are, and it'll go on into the process of being coded and approved or matched to a purchase order. If you've got multiple invoices sitting there waiting for attention, as we do that, the next one will pop up. And so that's going to be done at the start of the process for a few invoices to teach those supplier formats to the system. Most of them will already work, and as you go that requirement will get less and less, and your users will just use the system to automate that entry for them. Okay, so we've jumped out of the OCR process and now showing you ApprovalPlus. So ApprovalPlus is all around what happens after that. What do we do with that invoice? Who do we give it to? Can it be matched to a purchase order? Those sorts of things. Okay, so this is my landing page. It's summarizing the tasks that are waiting for me. So in my case, I'm listed as an accounts payable person, so I can just hit the go button and I can go into my list of invoices that have come in and start finishing them off. Or I can look at the list, for example, so I can go in and see that I have some invoices that have come in. I've got a duplicate invoice that's come in. I've got one that's got some unusual GST amounts on it, or some that need some matching done manually and things like that. There's a lot of little tasks in this area that help how your teams do their job. So for example, here we've got a shared to-do list. They're the things that have come in, and we might, as a team, share the task of processing these documents and handling them as well. So we can go and have a look at those ones, or we can assign them into our queue, those types of things to help with that process. Okay, if I go back to my landing page, the normal process for a lot of people is just coding and approving things. So if we're sort of putting the accounts payable team to the side for a minute, most people are on the system just coding and approving documents or raising purchase orders. So if I show you, for example, how to code an invoice, it's pretty simple stuff. We've got a list of ones that require doing. Let's go into one and show you it. For someone coding an invoice, they really need to see the invoice. They need to start applying it to part of their business. So in this case, we can see that we've got a rubbish collection invoice in front of us. We can see that we're paying that supplier that much, and invoice dates and things that have been collected by the OCR process. We're just following our nose and clicking the red button which says we need to fill out some GL coding information. Okay, so each user will be given only parts of the organisation that they can code to. So for example here, if I click on a list of cost centres, I only have a limited part of the organisation that I can code against. We're sourcing those GL codes and combinations of things from your ERP system. And so there may be many rules that you set up. So in this case, for example, I've chosen a cost centre and a GL code, and it's given me a shell card by default. It may be that you require someone to enter in a work order or an asset number, depending on the sorts of things you're choosing as part of your coding. Or you may even be just starting with a work order and it defaults those codes. So we can set up a lot of relationships between these different fields and how your organization wants your users to code things. Okay, we've read things means it's compulsory, so in this case we need to put in a comment. So we've had some rubbish collection. Okay, and we need to choose an approver. Okay, now the approver list will also change dynamically based on where we've coded this invoice and how much it is. We can split code it and have multiple approvers, all those things. In this case, we've got lots of people who can approve this particular GL code that are attached to me. It's a demo system, so we have lots of play people, if you like. You may be allowed to approve your own documents. You might be able to send it on to someone else who's got approval limits in that area. Okay, if I save that as a GL coding, it's finished. My button's changed. I'm now allowed to send that on to the approver. But before I do that, I might want to do some things like add a comment and say this was for the Auckland branch or something like that. And those types of things to help the people who are doing the approvals know what it is that we're sending them. You may want to attach other documents. So we've obviously got our invoice image attached here. We might want to go and attach some background information or a board paper or some emails that have come in regarding this. And they can be background proof that can live with this invoice as well. So you can have as many attachments as you like living with this document. Okay, let's send that to the approver, and I'm just going to float over the little message that pops up here. This is the sort of thing that's going to pop up when the approver comes in. Now, it's not much different from what we've just seen. It's summarizing invoice image on the left, accounts payable information at the top, where we've coded it to down the bottom, and we've got a little blurb that's appeared up the top here. It's saying this invoice is waiting to be approved, and it's showing us that last comment we put in. So it's a summary for the approver when they come in here to make it easy to know what it is they need to do. Okay, and in this case, if that's all they need to do, they would hit the approve button and this invoice would be finished. If they want a little bit more detail and they want to dive into it, they can drill in and say, well, which shell card was it coded to, was there a work order, all those types of things. That information's available to them if they want to. If there's more than one GL code, they can flick through all the different detail and things as well. If they want to look at the comment that we put in before, they live down a little comment section. They can have as many comments in here as they like and see all that. They want to look at the history of who's had this document. Here it is, all is, and so who did it, when it was processed, and who did their thing with it at any stage as well. Okay, and really that's all of the information an approver is ever going to want to see. If they wanted to dispute it or reject it and things like that, they can do that. They may even want to add a task after approval that it gets on charged to a customer and things like that. You can do those sorts of things as part of the process too. Okay, so I'm just going to approve that one. It's now finished. If I came in here from my approval screen, it will give me the next invoice to approve. Because I came in for my coding, it's going to give me the next one to code and send to the approver again. Okay, so the idea really is you keep on going, you process all your documents that are in your queue and get them off. And once you've got all your zeros on here, you're free and the next person's got their tasks to do. Okay, for the accounts payable person, there is obviously a task of getting those things to the finance system. And this can be automated or it can be manually batched by the accounts payable team. So we're just going to pop in here, have a look at the invoices that are approved, and they can go off to the finance system. And generally people just select the whole lot and send them. They may want to narrow it down and say choose a certain date range. So if you're at month end and it's the 3rd of the month and you're trying to send September invoices, not October ones and things like that, you can do those types of things inside of the batching routine as well. Or you may even simply just want to say I only want to send these 2 documents and push those into the finance system. Okay, at that stage they will land in the finance system with all the information ready to be paid. The general ledger information is there, and a link back to the invoice image is also sent. So if you're sitting in AX and you want to look at, for example, a ApprovalPlus Gisborne invoice, it's got a link in AX that will drill them back to here, and you'll be able to see the invoice image in detail as well. Okay, so that's the invoice process, and really what we're going to do now is run you through the purchase order process to sort of show you that it can be very easy to implement and a lot simpler than a typical ERP purchase order implementation. So, for example, here I'll just go new purchase order. And really we're going to go out and fill out the bits of information that we need to raise a purchase order from a supplier. And the way we do it is we've got an empty purchase order on the left, so it's a little bit like having a purchase order book, and we're filling things out on the right hand side. So the red things are compulsory. We need to obviously have a supplier to buy something off. So I can start typing and it'll give us a list of suppliers. So ApprovalPlus Gisborne, for example. We can do some typing of descriptions and it'll use the last one we used if you want to. Little things on the data entry like, if you put T, it puts in today's date for you and things like that. So it's trying to make the data entry very easy for the user. Do you want to hide your amounts from the purchase order? So if you do, you say, no, I don't want to print the amounts here and make them internal only and the suppliers don't see them. Is it a quote? Yes, it is. That'll take away the tolerances later. Is it urgent? So I can send it straight away to my supplier, my manager, to get an approval rather than waiting for bundles of emails to be sent and things like that. Okay, so I've created the header of my purchase order. I now need to say what it is I want to purchase. So I just keep following the red thing, click on that, and we're going to go and fill out our purchase order. Now, in this particular case, our supplier is limited to things that are loaded against a catalogue for the supplier. So I can click on here, and it's showing us all the things that I'm allowed to buy from ApprovalPlus Gisborne. And I might want to start typing, for example. I want some yellow post-it notes. Click that. It fills out my description, my item code, my pricing, my GL coding, all those sorts of things for me, and it's made that creation of that purchase order line very simple. And I just need to say I want 4 packets of post-it notes. It'll do the GST and all that sort of thing for me, and I just need to choose an approver. Okay, I'm choosing my own login in this case. Save my line, and I can save and copy and do mostly the same and just change some bits and things like that. Or I could copy an old purchase order. Okay, and the idea really is I've now created a simple purchase order with one line item on it, 4 packets of post-it notes, and I'm sending that off to my approver. Okay, they'll get an email or go in their to-do list. They'll come in here and do the approvals. In my case, I've chosen myself, so I can just stay on here and approve it. Okay, really then you've got to now place the order with the supplier. So that information hopefully can come from your ERP system if you're storing email addresses and phone numbers and things like that. So for example here, I could choose someone from ApprovalPlus Gisborne and it's got their email addresses and phone numbers and things in here. We do things like tracking the billing address and delivery locations and things like that for your company and put those on the purchase order. You might want to put a little instruction, deliver after 3 p.m. for example, and send your email off to that person. And at that stage really that purchase order is ordered. We're waiting for the goods and services to come in. So if we go back to our little home screen, typically those goods and services will come in, and I won't have that sitting up on screen, so I need to look at the list and jump in and find my things that have turned up, and it'll have the purchase order number on our delivery docket hopefully. We'll click in here and we'll say I've got these goods and services, right? So the idea really is to make that step simple. So if we had lots of lines on a purchase order, I can just go down and tick the ones I got. If I part receipted anything, I can go in and say I only got 3 out of the 4 packets and things like that. Or if I got the whole order, I can just receipt the purchase order, and that's now very simply done. And if an invoice now comes in quoting that purchase order number, that whole invoice process that we went through before takes over, grabs the invoice information from the purchase order and puts it onto that document and processes it through. So we're sort of looking at how can you make that process easier. With an invoice, the best part of an invoice is when you don't have to see it at all and it's all done automatically for you based on that purchase order. Really, that's the purchasing module. They all look similar, they all do similar things. Now I'm just going to take you through one last little piece that I wanted to show you, is the ApprovalPlus mobile side of things. And really what we're trying to do is focus these tasks that people do probably periodically, so you might do one of these every couple of months or something like that, like an expense claim for example, and make it easy for them to do it. Now I'm on my computer, but if this was on a phone, we have a very small real estate to play with a phone, so you try and make the screen work for people who have a small screen, right? So if I want to do an expense claim, I click the button. This is showing me the expense claims I've already entered and I haven't sent to my boss yet. If I wanted to do one where I'm just making a claim, I can say I went and took a taxi and it was $12, does the GST for me, and it was red cabs. What day was it? T for today. I did a sales trip. It's going to let me choose where I'm coding it to, but the GL codes and things are actually attached to the taxi type. Choose my approver. I've got a receipt, yes I do. Hit the save button, it'll fire my camera up on my phone. I can take a photo of the receipt and we're done. Okay, now the other thing is I'm on my computer, so I'm just going to attach an image here, but that's about as hard as it gets to do an expense claim. Okay, and if you're doing things like mileage and things, you can set those up and you don't need a photo in it, and it can do the dollars and the codes and things for you. If you have credit cards as your corporate way of purchasing some items, then you can get your credit card statements sent through to your users. And really this is similar to an expense claim. These are all my line items on a credit card statement. I need to jump into each one and say what it was I purchased, add a photo and go through that same process that we just did with the expense claim, then send all those things on to their approvers. And really they're just an invoice with a different flavour to them and a different sort of person using it to try and make it very quick and easy for them to do their piece. Okay, so that's really sort of taken you through the OCR process. Invoices, purchase orders, expense claims, credit cards, they're all similar with a little bit of differences around how people want to do them and how they get controlled. There's a whole lot of reporting that we provide as part of the system. There are things like accruals at month end, show me all the logins and dollar amounts that people are allowed to approve and all those sorts of things as part of the system. We also do special things sometimes for some organisations, so for example import purchase orders from their stock systems, or create buyer-created invoices based on some feed of information that comes from other locations and things like that. So all of these things are sort of interfaces and ways we can do things, and there'll be reports to suit those. So for example here's an accruals report, and it's showing us all the things that haven't hit the GL yet, if you like. Invoices that are waiting to be approved or haven't been exported, purchase orders have been receipted but not matched to, and things like that are all available. And all of the reports have a link in them, so you can drill straight to the real document and look at them as well. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a bit of a flavour for what's available. Obviously every organisation's a bit different, so if you have a desire to have a look at this, it's certainly worth talking directly with you and your teams and look at how this can fit in for your organisation and how we can make that suit your current system, your future system if you're looking at moving, and really how your organisation works and the rules that you have in play. So that's all I had to show. Thank you for your time, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me anything. If you'd like to arrange a demonstration for your team, please let me know. Thanks for your time today. Bye-bye.